Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today is Hump Day.
Mike. What day is it, Mike?
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
Oh, that's right, folks. Today is Hump Day. This is the day in which we attempt to begin the weekend, sometimes with success, sometimes not. But as I always like to say, the fun is all in the trying. As you see, I'm here trying to adjust my glasses. I will tell you, I love these glasses. These are called Limburgs. They are the most durable and the lightest and the most phenomenal, and I might add, very classy spectacles that are out there. The only problem I have is that I'm very rough on glasses. And so when I move them around a little bit, they often wind up looking crooked. And so I see myself, and when I finally come up on the camera, I'm like, ooh, I look a little crooked, or my glasses look a little crooked. Look like I've had a rough time off camera. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm having a good time on camera, and that is what matters. What also matters is you and the conversation that we get to have. This is always fun when we're conversating, so do us a favor. Oh, I'm sorry, I just used a word. I just used a word that Mike hates. One of those ones I made up, like conversate. In any case, whenever we conversate, would love to have a conversation with you. If you're watching us live, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. If you're obviously then watching us on YouTube, you're watching us on Facebook, or you're watching us on Rumble, or you're watching us on Twitter, go ahead and comment, and your comments will pop on up here, and I'll be able to share your comments with the rest of the audience if we find it to be interesting. So go ahead, check that out today. Would love to hear from you. Would love to hear where you are commenting from as well. Would love to know our national reach. Since we are coast to coast, between Mike being in Florida and me being here in California, we're coast to coast. So we would love to hear who betwixt and between is watching and or listening to the program. Also, if you miss this program, or you miss any part of this program, or the internet gods decide that they want to mess with our feed, you can always watch or listen to the program wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify, where you can both watch and or listen to the program. We're on we're on Google Podcast. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on just about all of them. Apple Podcasts, all of them. So go there, check them out. And by the way, if you subscribe to any of those, if you're on any of those, do us a favor. Even if you have one place where you watch us, go to the other places and subscribe for a couple of reasons. One, if we wind up getting censored in one of the other areas, you can still get the program or get that episode. But number two, you help drive up our numbers. It helps us to get sponsors. It helps us to get more money and, get more people to, get more shows to keep the show going. So do us a favor. If you support us and you support what we're doing here at The Rundown, go ahead, like, share, and subscribe wherever you can, and encourage your friends to do the same. Now, speaking of paying bills, let's go ahead and take care of that real quick. And do what we do by giving a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with Hitman Industries, and it might help if I didn't actually just go ahead and start that video again. Problem with being both in front of and behind the camera at the same time. Okay, here we go. Bam, there we go. Hitman Industries. If you own an AR platform rifle and want to rebarrel it, check out Hitman Industries. If you're interested in doing a brand new home build, check out Hitman Industries. They have rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you today, including Glock barrels. And if you are a first responder and you are a first time purchaser from them, you're going to get a discount. So check them out today, hitmanindustries.net. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives. Let me say it again, conservatives at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. So go to cragop.org, go to cragop.org and check them out, because if you want to be a part of California's future today, you got to join CRA. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters, and that would be Hog Holsters. That's HAWG Holsters, helping Americans wear guns. All you got to do is go to hogholsters.com, use the discount code The Rundown, just like it is right up there, and get your hog holster today with a discount. And that discount will be on us, so check them out today. Once again, that's Hog Holsters. And then finally, the best place to go if you are looking for any sort of tactical gear. Outdoor gear, wet weather, cold weather, hot weather, whether you're looking for hats, whether you're looking for boots, whether you're looking for backpacks. Folks, they have all things tactical except the gun. They have a phenomenal, huge selection. They have competitive prices and fast shipping. Check them out today. Veteran-owned and operated, uscombatgear.com. Speaking of combat, well, I guess calling it a combat probably isn't the best thing because it wasn't much of a combat. It wasn't really much of a competition. I would go as far as to say that it was a good old-fashioned arse whooping. We knew, and I knew, that J.D. Vance was intellectually superior. I knew that going into this, he was going to be more prepared. You just could tell. Based on the fact that they wouldn't allow Tim Walz to do any real interviews, that they wouldn't allow him to kind of be on his own and talk about anything. Because keep in mind, he had a very complicated job, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But he kind of, not only did he have to introduce himself to the world, but he also had to defend Kamala Harris and the Biden-Harris administration, and at the same time point out how they were doing, how they were different. In other words, what made them new, right? That they had to kind of focus and talk a little bit about that. In fact, here in this particular piece over here, and I love the way they put it over at the Washington Free Beacon. They said, "Dad in headlights, knucklehead," and that was what he referred to himself as. Says knucklehead Tim Walz bumbles through primetime debate with a smooth J.D. Vance. Let's see here. Adam Stiles writes, Governor Tim Walz, Minnesota, made several dubious claims during the vice presidential debate against Senator J.D. Vance, a Republican from Ohio, on Tuesday, but insisting he, quote, enjoyed the evening was easily the most far-fetched. Ever since Vice President Kamala Harris picked Walz as her running mate in August, journalists and other Harris supporters have fawned over his, quote, folksy charm and cuddly demeanor. Some questioned why the Harris campaign has been so reluctant to make someone billed as Mr. Likeable available for interviews with the national outlets. Walz's bumbling performance on Tuesday answered the question once and for all. And, speaking of that, there are tons of different opportunities here where Tim Walz really showed that, he wasn't prepared for the evening. He truly was not prepared for the evening. Even his opponent acknowledged that he was going to have a hard time.
Honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you've simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
So what you saw right there was I thought was the mastery of what J.D. Vance did. With every answer that he gave, number one, he made sure that he answered the question. I think the only question he didn't answer had to do with the whole January 6th thing, which, quite frankly, is not an issue. When you look at where people rate things as issues, only Democrat leadership, only Democrat politicians keep bringing this thing up. No one believes that it was an attempt to overthrow the country. Absolutely, positively. Let me clarify. No one with half a brain So I'll just leave it at that. If you believe that, then you don't have half a brain. Anyway, but it's not really an issue. And that was really the only question that he didn't answer. Every other question, he made sure to, number one, answer. But then he made sure to bring it back to Kamala Harris is the president. She is the one that's currently in office. She's the one who's responsible for this mess. And then put him on the defensive. And what are you going to do about it? How can you claim that you are both have the experience of currently being in office, and you are the agent of change? And he wasn't quite able to do that. Matter of fact, he did a very, very poor job of attempting to do that. It didn't work out for him at all, not at all. And by the way, he had tons of flubs and tons of mistakes. Probably the worst of which. Now, I don't know if this is the worst of which, but if you want to get an idea of how flustered he was, when he was questioned on the whole Tiananmen Square thing, when he said, "Well, I was in China. I was there in Tiananmen Square," they called him on it, and he went off on this. I was born a poor middle class child, kind of like from The Jerk, and to their credit, now I will give them some credit. At least the moderators from CBS, they did, after he went off like that. They did come back and say, yeah, but the question was...
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this is I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests, went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
Okay, so let's clarify. Number one, he said, yeah, that's what I said. I misspoke. Now, let's be very clear. He specifically said he gave the dates that he was there. He didn't just misspeak. When he said that he was there, he talked about he was there in June, that he was there in May. He was very specific. So in the debate, he lied. He just flat out lied. He didn't misspeak. You lied before, and then you just lied now. Now, the other question that I have to ask regarding this was that he said, I learned the things that I need to learn about governance. So is he saying that if there are protesters, we should roll in tanks? That we should kill the protesters? Is that what he learned? I don't know. I mean, I'm listening to what he had to say, and that kind of seemed to be what he had to say. Now, mind you, the thing that was also masterful about this was literally 3 against 1. All right. You might recall, and we talked about this yesterday when we were talking about the lead up to the debate. He said, or at least CBS said, that they would not be fact checking. You might have noticed that there was a QR code there. And that was, you could click on the QR code and go to a website where reporters, other people, would be fact checking. There wouldn't be any fact checking during the debate. Right? Wrong.
And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP One app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal.
Okay, so This is what's funny about that. So number one, they really want to glance over the fact that, and by the way, this is something that they're doing when they say that these are not illegal immigrants. What's happening here is literally there's an app that you go on and you fill it out, and then they just let you into the country. No vetting, no nothing. You just get let into the country. And that is not something that has been around since 1990. That is something they literally just created. Through this app, they literally are, now what they are literally doing is flying. They've flown hundreds of thousands of migrants into the country. Hundreds of thousands. They don't verify who they are. They don't verify their asylum claim and whether or not the reasons they are seeking asylum actually fall under the definition of allowing someone to seek asylum. You don't get to seek asylum because it sucks to live where you live. You have to be someone who is, staying there puts you in danger because the government or the gangs, there's got to be a reason why you need to get out of your country. And even then, it does not guarantee you that you get to stay in the United States while you are applying for asylum. So, technically, are they legal? Well, we let them in. But no, these are folks who were just basically just let into the country. And by the way, that was all part of the conversation. And what was funny about this is they talked about how they said, well, how can you say that migrants increase the cost of housing? And I wish he had just said, well, it's called Basic Economics 101, the law of supply and demand. When you have migrants, when you have people coming into the country, right? The more people you have, in this case, we'll talk about Springfield, Ohio. When you have in a town of 50,000, you bring in 20,000, right? You bring in 20,000. Increase the population by 40%. And oh, by the way, we're going to give that 20,000 people, we're going to give them housing vouchers that they can use to rent places out and they can use to get housing. That increases the cost of housing, right? You've increased demand because you haven't just increased the number of people demand, but you've increased the number of dollars that they have to demand housing. Well, what does that do to the people who already live there? What does that do to them? Well, they're not getting the extra money. They're not getting the government money to pay for the housing. So the price goes up and they get priced out of housing. This is not rocket science. They know that. Well, let me clarify. Maybe I'm giving the anchors there a little too much credit. Maybe they really are idiots. I mean, they are supporting Kamala Harris. Anyway, but despite the fact that they fact checked him, there were other areas in which it was clearly biased. Number one, just in the questions that they asked, right? Now, I mean, how much they didn't ask any questions about Ukraine. They didn't ask any real significant number of questions about how they're going to secure the border. They didn't ask any questions about what was going on right then, which, by the way, happens to be the attack on Israel. They asked one question. That was it. Anyway, trust me, he had plenty of instances where he kind of did himself in. For example, declaring that he's friends with school shooters?
So I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to.
Yeah. He declared that he was friends with school shooters. I don't know what he was doing there. I really don't know what the point of that was. But yeah, he said he was friends with school shooters. Anyway, overall, it was hilarious. I don't know if it will change. I don't know if it'll change the outcome of the election at all, but I do know this. I do know that if there were people who are worried about Vance, about J.D. Vance, about him being weird, I think that he definitely did not come across as weird. What I will say is, I think some conservatives are going to be a little frustrated because I think he hedged his bets on a number of questions, but I get what he was doing. He was speaking to the undecided voter. He was speaking to the middle of the road female voter, who, by the way, is one of the number one targets of the Democratic Party. Is they're realizing that's their base. And if they can get as many of them back by hedging their bets, I think that's what he did. I don't agree with him on a lot of the stuff, but anyway, that was the plan, and I think he executed it masterfully. All right, moving right along. Harris says people shouldn't go to jail for smoking weed. Now, mind you, this is a person who sent thousands of people to jail for smoking weed. This piece right here from the who are these folks? From the Washington Free Beacon. It says here, people shouldn't go to jail for smoking weed. Kamala Harris, who sent thousands to jail for smoking weed. Vice President Kamala Harris continues to embrace policy positions completely at odds with her previous actions as an elected official. Quote, I just feel strongly that people shouldn't go to jail for smoking weed, she said Monday during an appearance on a video podcast, All the Smoke, a video podcast hosted by former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. We need to legalize it. Now, the interesting thing about this, and I've said this before, a lot of people take that as, well, see, she's a hypocrite because yada, yada, yada. Well, okay, the reality is she smoked people, she put people in jail, or at least convicted them of smoking weed. But a huge percentage, I feel very comfortable saying a majority of those who she convicted weren't just smoking weed, they were selling weed. And she actually she pled down the charges to smoking weed. So basically they got a slap on the wrist. Most of them didn't do any jail time. But they actually were in possession of felony weight. They should have gone to jail for dealing drugs, and she let them off the hook. But once again, whichever way you look at it, she's kind of contradicting herself. So in other words, you shouldn't go to jail for smoking. You shouldn't go to jail for selling weed, but you arrested people and sent them to jail for selling weed. Anyway, once again, and this is just stuff, once again, where she's contradicting herself. She has no consistency. There is absolutely no consistency. And on top of it, she'll flat out lie. She'll flat out lie and tell you, yeah, no, I didn't do that. Just say, no, I didn't do that. No, that's not the case. And that's just a symptom of a way of doing business for this administration. A great example, well, we talked the other day about the 13,000 murderers that have just been led into the United States. That's right, 13,000 murderers have been led into the United States. And by the way, this is not just a random number, right? This is not a number that was just made up by some conservative think tank. These numbers came from ICE, right? These numbers came from those who are supposed to secure our border. They gave us those numbers. But if you listen to the White House, well, that's just not the case. Those numbers are fallacies. They come from some right-wing group.
Back to this in a moment, but Peter Ducey's asking a question in the briefing room. Let's listen in. It's on the border.
Outlets that has been debunked on what has been falsely misrepresented here. So we have to call that out. And so, look,
can you clarify what the misrepresentation is?
The numbers that is being put out about how many people are out has been falsely represented here. If you look at the total returns and removal of the past year, that has been higher than every year under the previous administration since 2010, if you look at it. And if we're going to report something, a data that's out there, we got to do it in a way that is not confusing the American people and certainly not lying. And so there has been,
So not confusing the American people and not lying. So I guess ICE is lying. I guess NBC News is confusing the people. Because once again, here's the story. More than 13,000 immigrants convicted of homicide are living outside immigration detention in U.S., ICE says. This is two different law enforcement officials said many of those migrants crossed into the United States under previous administrations, and that the total includes people serving in U.S. prison, serving U.S. prison sentences. So so in other words, here they hedge their bets, but they're acknowledging that they are here in the United States. 13,000 of them. And by the way, many of them have once again just entered the country. And we just, by the way, let them in. So anyway, it's going to be real interesting to see because they are all they care about is letting as many people into the country as they can. And they seem to think, I don't know, maybe they think it'll up their numbers. Maybe they think it'll help get people in here who will work and help fund Social Security. I don't know. I don't know what their goal is behind it. All I know is it ain't working out so well for the American people. It's not. And it's her record. You know, she needs to own this record. She is part of this administration. And Joe Biden, as quiet as it's kept, he feels like, why isn't she not giving? He feels like she should be taking credit for the work this administration has done. And Joe Biden agrees. Like, why? Well, I don't mind that she takes credit, but why isn't she talking about me more? Why isn't she pumping up at me and talking about how good a guy I am? This, according to reports. This is a report over at the New York Post. It says Biden privately grumbling that Kamala Harris isn't mentioning him enough in speeches. This is according to a report. President Biden is reportedly grumbling behind closed doors that Vice President Kamala Harris hasn't been mentioning him or Bidenomics enough in her recent campaign speeches. Biden, 81, has privately complained to allies that Harris and the Democratic Party appear to have moved on from him. Yes, they have. What do you think? Anyway, since his July exit from the 2024 race, and that his, quote, accomplishments are no longer being highlighted as Election Day nears, according to NBC News report Monday. The president was particularly upset at one instance in which the 59-year-old vice president did invoke his name during her September 10 debate against former President Trump, but in an effort to distance herself from his policies. And that's what she does. You never know which Kamala Harris you're talking to. Okay, are you the Kamala Harris that was part of Biden-Harris? That was the last one in the room when key decisions needed to be made? Or are you the agent of change that will lead us because we can't handle 4 more years of this? Which Kamala Harris are you? And that's why, when he brought up the whole thing about her being black, and she was black and now she's not black, or is she black? I mean, it was a ham-handed way of saying, look, who are you? Are you going to be, the agent of change? Are you going to distance yourself from Joe Biden? Or are you going to just be just like Joe Biden? You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I'm going to take credit for all the successes while at the same time distance yourself from his failures. You own it all. You need to pick. You need to decide. You got to own it all. And even Joe Biden recognizes, why are you not giving me credit for stuff that supposedly we did right? Because you didn't do it right, Joe, and she knows it. And the American people do not perceive that you did it right. But see, you and your administration, you believe that the people are confused, that we don't know what we're talking about, right? That's the problem. When in reality, it's y'all who are confused. All right, and that brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com. Make sure you use discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, just like it is right up there, and you'll get your Hog Holster today. Now, like I talked about, the debate was it was pretty much an arse whipping. It was bad. It was really, really bad. In fact, according to the Babylon Bee, fake news that you can count on, J.D. Vance is probably going to need a GoFundMe because he's going to need bail money. Because they're reporting that DOJ indicts J.D. Vance for brutally beating 3 women. Now, mind you, it was a 3-on-1 debate, and I guess he's assuming that... I guess he doesn't want to assume the gender, right? Doesn't want to assume the gender for Tim Walz. The white dude for Kamala in the name of white dudes for Kamala, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, he proved it to be, less than ready. And many people in the nation are in awe because Kamala Harris managed to find a running mate dumber than she is. Once again, that headline coming from the Babylon Beat. Oh, but wait, there's more. Now, he did, and I'm upset that I did not get this particular piece when I was looking for it. I was trying to get this quote of this video segment, but he did actually explain what he meant by Tiananmen Square. And once again, as reported by the Babylon Bee, it says here, Walz clarifies that he meant the Tiananmen Square Chinese buffet in Omaha, Nebraska. That's the Tiananmen Square that he was in when he was talking about it. Anyway, folks, wow. All I have to do is say wow, wow, and wow again. Fun stuff, good stuff. We're having fun stuff. Folks, if you didn't watch the debate, there's tons of places on YouTube or online or on Twitter where you can go. You can watch the highlights. I encourage you, go there, check it out. Also would like to encourage you, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and subscribe to the Babylon Bee. Kick them down some money. Like I said, they do a very good job of making light of some of the more serious subjects that we deal with and making them a little bit easier to swallow. So I appreciate what they do. I am a subscriber, and they don't pay me to say this. So I'm telling you, I'm telling you this as someone who does it. Go ahead and support them today. Also, make sure you support our sponsors, including Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you today. California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Hogga Holsters, who are helping Americans wear guns. And the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. That's uscombatgear.com. With that, we're going to call it a day. We're going to call it a show. We're going to go. We'll be back tomorrow on Throat Punch Thursday. Till then, y'all have fun, stay safe, and if you get a chance, send a few downrange for me. We'll holler at you later.